Well, I think that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's telling a story, do you think people should believe you?
Well, I'd want them to, you know?
Right.
Like, I mean, why would somebody make something like that up? You are now listening to Fallen Hour Radio. So, anytime I hear a ghost story or any story that has to do with paranormal, I'm always kind of half skeptical.
Right.
Just especially the ones that are kind of really over the top or sound too crazy to be real. I'm always kind of like half skeptical at first.
As you should be.
Yeah, as you should be. A healthy skeptic, I guess you can call it. Until I really think about, some of the stories or experiences I've had. And when I think about that, this story comes to mind. Well,
I think that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's telling a story, do you think people should believe you?
Well, I'd want them to, Right. Like, I mean, why would somebody make something like that up? Like, what are they gaining out of that? Except maybe the risk of looking crazy, to everybody. And, this is one of the stories that I've never really told because it's just really out there. But the thing that kind of helps is that there was 4 people that experienced this thing.
Right.
And that's what kind of makes me feel a lot better about telling this. So because I'm not the only one that experienced it.
Right.
So this story happens my senior year of high school, before school started, like it was during that summer. Growing up in the town that we did, it was really small and there was nothing much to do. So we just basically cruise around, cars or motorcycles and stuff like that. And we'd cruise around all day, night and day. And on this night, we were on motorcycles.
Right.
And it was me and my brother and the people that are with us. I'm going to change the names of them. We'll say it's Tina and Shauna,
Okay.
So we were driving around and it was actually pretty late at night. I'd say it was maybe around 11:30, almost midnight. And we were driving around Crow Agency, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody knows what Crow Agency, Montana is, it's the teepee capital of the world where we grew up.
Right.
On a reservation. And, that place is kind of really known for a lot of crazy paranormal stories and just all kinds of crazy stuff happen there. Like people talk about them.
By locals.
Yeah, by locals. A lot of these stories people don't really actually come out and talk about, just with each other, like down there, local people. But I kind of thought maybe we should start telling these stories.
Right.
Now, this story in particular might get some backlash because of the stuff that happened and the things that I might say.
As we're famous for.
Yeah, we're known for, sometimes getting that kind of feedback, but,
right.
The majority of them actually ask for it, especially locals, asking us to tell these kind of stories. So this one is probably one of the craziest. So it was the summer before my senior year, and we were cruising around on motorcycles, and it was around 11:30 midnight. And Tina was on the back of my bike, and Shauna was on the back of Elle's, our older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, we kind of drive around together, a lot. And sometimes we'd split up and drive around, go our own ways, but we'd always meet up again. And I remember he went one way and I went another. We were kind of driving around for a bit, and we went to go find them. Thought maybe we'll just go meet up with them, see where they're at. And we ended up going through the fairgrounds, where they have, crow fair and powwows and all that kind of stuff. And at nighttime, it's always kind of creepy when none of that stuff's there, when it's completely empty.
Right.
And we used to kind of drive through there really slow at night, kind of creep each other out and stuff. And it was a little creepier because we were on a motorcycle and you kind of feel more vulnerable, because you're out in the open.
Right.
Yeah. So me and her went driving through there to find them. And the way the fairgrounds are set up, it's almost like a labyrinth of roads and dirt roads that just kind of circle around and intertwine with each other.
Well, you'd probably get lost if you weren't
if you're not from there, you kind of like take the wrong road. It'll bring you around. You might circle back to where you came from, and sometimes you might be able to get lost if you're not from here, because there's a lot of entrances and exits. And we were driving through here, and it was like dead, dead in town. There was not really many people out, and we were the only ones driving through there. And it was just, silent. The only thing you can hear is basically my motorcycle.
Right.
We were driving through there, and it was dark, man. It was a dark night. Like the stars or anything didn't even light up the ground. Like all I could see was what my headlights lit up. And we were coming around one of the bends, and through the trees on the other side of this road, we saw something glowing, and we thought maybe that's Al, maybe that's his headlight, him and our friend. So we drive around this bend, and we see what looks like a teepee in the middle of the fairgrounds during a time where there shouldn't be any.
Right.
There's absolutely nobody there, no camps, no nothing.
And nobody leaves their teepees there.
Nobody leaves them up. The second, like these, the fair or any kind of powwow happens, as soon as they're done, everybody just strips everything down, packs up and leaves.
Right.
So there's nothing there. We come around this bend, and I remember her telling me it looks like a teepee, like lit up. So we come around this bend, and we see a teepee, but the teepee's literally on fire.
Wow.
It's burning. And we kind of pull up. We kept our distance. I slowed up, and it was just strange seeing that. Like, what the hell is going on? We looked around, and we didn't see anybody there. It was just us and this teepee that was burning. And I was going to drive by it, but she stopped me. She was creeped out. And she said, no, I don't want to go this way. Let's turn around and go back. So I turned my bike around, and I, drove out of there pretty fast, because I started getting creeped out too, like thinking about it. I drove out of there pretty quickly, and we went to the park and thought, well, we'll just wait here.
Which isn't too far from the fairgrounds.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's a small place, It's just a lot of back roads and, that kind of stuff. So we sat at the park waiting, just trying to basically fathom what we just saw. We thought it was really strange. And finally, coming out of the same road that we came out of was our older brother and our friend. And she, had this look on her face like she was just kind of like, oh my God, like she had something to tell us. And he pulls up, and both of them are talking at the same time, They're both talking at the same time. We couldn't really what the hell happened? We're trying to tell them what happened to us.
Right.
And what they saw was probably creepier than what we saw.
That was strange.
We told them that we went through the fairgrounds trying to find them, and we saw this teepee burning, in the middle of, all these trees and fields. And they just looked at each other, and they said that they were coming through one of the other entrances. And
which there's many.
Yeah, there's many. And this entrance comes down, and to the right, it's a big kind of open spot, like all the trees are cut down right there, but there's trees surrounding it.
Right.
And it's a campsite. And they said when they came driving down that road, his headlights hit just right, and they thought they saw somebody creeping out of the trees, coming out of this clearing.
Right.
And they said it was a Native American in regalia, and he had a bow and he had an arrow.
Right.
And he came creeping up, and he said he kind of slowed up to look, and they said that this person drew his bow like he was going to shoot at him.
Right.
He drew his bow, and Shauna, she started kind of screaming and telling him, go, get the hell out of here. And so he guns it out of there, and he said that he just sees his arms going like this, pulling back, like he's shooting at them.
Right.
And he just hears war whooping and that kind of stuff, like what they
scary.
do when they're taunting you, and their war crying,
they're trying to scare you,
kind of trying to intimidate you and scare you. This is what they do, and I'm sure there's like other meanings behind that, why they do that, all these warriors do that. But that's what they were hearing. If you hear this in the middle of the night where there's supposed to be nobody around, that would scare the hell out of me. Yeah. So he tells us about this, and me and my brother, we're like, let's go back in there. I want to show him this, where we saw this teepee burning. And the girls, they're kind of like freaking out. They're like, no, we don't want to go in there, especially on the bikes. And so we thought, well, would you feel better if we get in the car? And they said, well, yeah, we'll go in the car. We'll feel a lot safer being inside a car. So we ended up jumping in one of my dad's cars, and my dad, he had badass cars,
numerous,
so he had like Trans Ams and Camaros and
Mustangs,
Buick Wildcat, Mustangs, and they had cars like that. So we jump in the Camaro, and we start driving through there, and we go through one of the other entrances, and we're driving slow, and we rolled the windows down, seeing if we can hear anything, and we're kind of creeping through there, and they drove us to where they saw this Native American that was war whooping at him and shooting arrows.
Right.
And they told us exactly what happened and everything, and there was nothing there when we were there though. So we went to go show them where we saw this teepee burning. Now when we get to this spot where the teepee was burning, there was no teepee poles, there was no teepee, there was no fire, the grass was still perfectly fine.
Right.
There was no signs of a fire. And so they started getting really creeped out. We started getting really creeped out. So it's like, okay, well, let's just get the hell out of here. And this is where it really starts getting kind of weird. We started driving up the entrance that, me and Tina drove out. And when we pull up to that exit right on the border of where the road comes in, there was something in the middle of the road. Now, what it reminded me of when we were talking about it after this was the Blair Witch.
Right.
Because we just saw these 4 sticks crossing, almost like making a small teepee, the way it looked.
Oh, interesting.
They were both crossed like this and tied at the top.
Wow.
And a string hanging down with something hanging on the end.
Medicine?
And that's what one of the people that was with us said that it looked like. She said it looks like a medicine bag. And when one of the people that was with us saw that, she really freaked out, like I think she was more like a traditional, growing up we weren't really traditional, but a lot of our friends and stuff were. And she said, you can't go this way, you can't go out this way. So it's like, all right, well, we'll pick another exit, there's like 50 to pick from. Right. So we back out and we go to the next one, which is literally right next to it, and there's another one there.
Wow. Every
single exit we went to, there was this little stand on the ground, wooden stand with something hanging on it, and it looked like a medicine bag. And one of them I remember was really stuck out, because the way it was made, it wasn't used. It wasn't like twine or anything used to hold this bag. It looked like somebody tore off the zipper of their jacket and used that to tie it up.
Oh, interesting.
You could see the ridges on it and everything.
Right.
And that part of your jacket, that's what it looked like. And we went to all these exits, and she was freaking out by that point, like we were trapped. And that's kind of what it felt like. Like she didn't want to, like, you can't go out this way, you can't go out that way, like something bad will happen. And I was already thinking something bad's already happening,
Right.
So, we finally make our way back to the first spot that we tried to exit, and there was nothing there. And we drove out and we started driving by all the exits on the outside, and there was nothing on any of them. There was nothing there. And as fast as we were driving, you'd have to be pretty quick to go there and pick all those things up if you were somebody trying to mess with someone,
Right.
If somebody was trying to play
Especially
around with us. Yeah. Somebody trying to play around with you, you'd have to be moving pretty quick. I mean, we were hauling ass in a Camaro, and yeah, that was just probably one of the weirdest things that ever happened to us. Wow. So, like, how do you explain that, Like, how do you explain that whole night? We even went there the next day and stood in the spot where we saw this teepee burning, and there was no sign of any kind of fire. Wow. And this thing was full blazing. And usually off season, the fairgrounds are pretty green.
They're pretty green, and they're just empty.
And it's next to a river.
Nobody there, like
right.
Once in a while you'll see somebody driving through, but that's it, and it's not very often, like not many people go there, during the off season. Sometimes you catch people like parked somewhere, partying or whatever.
Right.
But not usually, so it's always pretty empty. And yeah, that's just, I don't like trying to explain, like I would like to hear somebody explain what this was, like.
Do you think that those medicine bags were there before you entered the fairgrounds?
Just didn't see them?
Right, you just didn't see them.
That thought crossed my mind,
Right.
We talked about that for a while, and after a while we just kind of quit talking about it, it was just pretending like it didn't happen.
This is the thing we hit a wall on, especially with Native American lore.
Yeah.
Is that there are things that people don't understand.
Yeah.
Especially
it's a different world, like trying to explain that.
Right.
It's different. Like, there's things that they keep secret, especially, in Native American culture. There's things that they don't talk about.
Right.
There's
like what happens inside of a sweat.
Yeah, what happens inside of all these different things.
Or a Sundance.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
We heard a story. This is worth noticing, and it's kind of creepy that the deer woman is now hanging sideways on the wall. Did you knock that over?
I didn't touch that.
That's creepy.
At all. That was straight.
Yeah,
I was just looking at that earlier because I thought, what if we, hung it up behind this? And I thought, nah, just leave it.
And we're pretty OCD, so it's like things don't hang sideways like that.
Yeah,
but now weird, a deer woman talking about Native American lore is hanging
a painting
sideways. And I was just about to mention him.
Yeah,
which is kind of weird to me too. Is the artist of, I don't know if he wants to mention his name, but he had a story about being inside of a sweat.
Mm.
And inside of the sweat, this medicine man brings in, I believe this is how he mentioned it, was a medicine man or someone brought in stick figures almost. They were wrapped in some sort of wrapping. They were sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they put them down on the fire inside of the sweat or the rocks. And as they were doing peyote or praying or something, that these stick men were getting up. And they were dancing.
That's
and they were
strange.
Probably just a little bit bigger than his hands. And as they were playing music and things like that, they were dancing inside of the sweat.
That's insane, man.
And this is an artist that creates some of the most profound images we can even. He doesn't stick to. He sticks to Native American art pieces, but in these past couple of years, we've been asking him to paint some pretty dark figures.
Yeah, like he made some amazing artwork.
Right. And he's been excited about it because he wants to dive into that realm of
kind of go into that dark side and see what he comes up with.
The darker side
and man, he pulled out some amazing artwork.
Yeah. He wants to get into the darker side of the Native American history.
Yeah.
And things that we're trying to pull out.
That's the thing. There's, dark sides and light sides to everything, every culture. I talk to a lot of people, especially about this kind of stuff.
Right.
And, I talk to people that even mentioned, getting into that kind of stuff, like that dark side of it,
Right.
Like, why would you want to do that, I never really, try to judge people. You know, I just conversate with them and see what they have to say. You know, like I've talked to people that, you know, talk about doing what they call, you know, medicine, you know,
Right.
And there's good medicine, bad medicine. You know, I always thought there was like maybe one or two like medicine men in a tribe.
Right.
There's a lot.
And
here.
this is the funny thing, because our family is not into medicine.
Yeah.
We're
not traditional.
Right. They see it as like a con side of medicine. There's a pro and a con.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking the con side.
Yeah.
Because it has bad energy, bad repercussions.
Yeah.
And our family, if you know our story, is they come from a line of preachers and things of that nature. So it was like a bad thing to get in that realm.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, on our dad's side, there is a lineage of medicine women.
Yeah. Which is uncommon.
Right, which was
uncommon back in the day.
And this is, my dad actually has this artifact. Well, we call it an artifact now. That's what I would call it now.
Yeah.
And this is something that he, I think, talked about getting rid of before.
Yeah.
But it's a dresser.
I hated moving that thing, man.
Right.
That thing was like 1,000 pounds.
And this thing is like copper, or it's metal or something. It's straight. There's no wood inside of it. It's just a straight metal dresser.
Yeah.
And this dresser was said to be a medicine woman's.
Yeah.
And the story about her was, now we got to ask my dad again. But the thing about her was, the peculiar thing about her was that she had medicine.
Yeah.
And it's uncommon in the Crow tribe. It's uncommon in any tribe.
The thing about her was she had a lot of husbands.
Right.
Now, even when she was really old, old.
Right.
You know, like say she was like 75 years old.
Right.
Her husbands were like 21, 22. Right. And
they saw her as beautiful.
They saw her as the most beautiful person in the world, because that was one of her, like, the medicines that she had. Right. It was like almost like a love spell.
Right. And you wouldn't believe this unless you saw it.
Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that, like, it's like talking to people that aren't around that or never grew up around it. It's hard to explain it.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to believe.
Right. Unless you've seen her.
Unless you've seen,
her marriages.
Yeah.
And the thing about her was, when she died, there was medicine that she brought out.
Yeah.
That she said she never used before.
She wanted to be buried with her.
Right.
And it was.
Right. Even the medicine that was basically shielding the eyes of those that are young against her. She was sought to be, or portrayed to be, through her medicine, a beautiful young woman.
Yeah.
But she was using that, out of all the medicine she had, to get husbands.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ones she was buried with.
There was a lot of like stuff that she had buried with her, because she didn't want anybody to get a hold of it.
Right.
So, and she ended up getting buried with it. So, like, when I think about this story, I think about if somebody was practicing dark stuff.
Right.
And, just practicing it, or just trying to, mess with people.
Right.
And we just happen to be the people going through there that night.
And let's preface that area. There was a place called the Round Hole in that area, and I believe it was still there when the story was happening.
It was.
And this Round Hole is where they had a lot of their hand games.
Yeah, hand games.
And there's another story we got to get into sometime.
Yeah.
Of what was happening in the hand games. But different tribes, I believe, have their different take on it, but I believe they follow the same line.
And that stuff is like not something to play with.
Right.
When that building got torn down,
right, the workers,
they found a bunch of medicine bags
tied in the building,
hidden in there. And somebody that wasn't around this kind of stuff, didn't know anything about it, was a construction worker.
Right.
He picked up one of these medicine bags, and it was a big one.
Right.
And he was untying it, and somebody was trying to stop him as he was opening it.
Right.
And, told him, don't open that, leave that alone, as he was opening it. And when he opened this bag up, the side of his face literally fell.
Like a stroke.
And he ended up having a really, really bad stroke.
Right.
And yeah, that put him in the hospital for I don't know how long.
And this is documented.
Yeah, this is documented.